Hello, my name is Jay Koyak, and today I will be talking about expressive language impairment disability. This is for LAI 574. So what is expressive language impairment disability? I hate to start off the presentation like this. I usually like to have a lot of pictures, but I did want to have an official and a casual definition, which you can find above. Yet in simple terms, it's when a child has normal language skills but cannot retain a high vocabulary or properly communicate with more than simple sentences. We often take communication for granted and make it so natural for us that when we lose it, we really can't function. And this is the same idea we have with these students that we have. The information that they have in their minds is there. Yet when it comes to relaying this information to other people, they are unable to properly communicate it verbally or written. Many times you will see students that have expressive language disability not communicate verbally and instead do signs such as gesture or point. We have to remember that these students and children may not even have the ability to properly gesture what they mean. A basic sign for help may be a wave of the arms or I need assistance. The problem is that these gestures often lead to misinterpretations. We often don't think about the importance verbal language has on our written language. I can guarantee you that most of us remember words being written down phonetically in early school days. Now imagine that being taken away. It's almost 10 times harder for us to spell them out. I can only imagine what it's like for a young child that doesn't even know the words, learning for the first time. The sad part is how much of an impact this really has on our key ideas and concepts as we learn them when we're young and turn them into our building blocks. At this point, this starts to snowball when we start to fail at a higher level. And this is why it's so vital to understand and accommodate these students' needs as soon as we can. Another concept you never really think about is the lack of cohesion between students with expressive language disability and those in the general population. You start to see students begin to separate each other from them. And this often leads to conflict and bullying and the very things we're trying to stop out of our school districts. Again, we have this idea of a thought being trapped within the mind. It wants to get out, but it just loses its way. The student may know the exact answer to the whole reading that was just read to them, but can't put it into words. And with everything being so data-driven today, the problem is that you can only get the information in small bits or terms that don't really prove that student's IQ. Another sign is the lack of imaginative play, expressing ideas that come down to just more than a simple gesture. It requires a lot of thought and also a lot of expression. Many children feel uncomfortable about this, and it's due to the fact of the differences in peers, or maybe they even feel comfortable with adults and others in general. With all these different warning signs and what to expect, I guess the question is how often does this happen? And from what I could find, the number is about 5% of preschool students that have this disability. But this makes it one of the most prevalent and unfortunately least well detected disabilities today. Let's talk about some of the research that become very prevalent in the field. While vocabulary is often prominent in the general population, an intervention-style vocabulary should be used for those with expressive language impairment, as this high emphasis on vocabulary and expressing information allows for an assisting and closing the gap for language development. Early years such as kindergarten and first grade teachers, when given information and a diagnosis of expressive language impairment, with special education teachers can create an IEP and best create a plan to tackle and keep pace with other students. The faster this plan comes into action, the higher development and achievement that student may have. Next, we see the importance of technology and the development of educational technology in schools. Multimodal lessons now allow students to look and interact in new ways that will accommodate and better suit their needs. Today, tablets, computers, app programs, etc. have made huge improvements in the lives of many students in and outside of the classroom. Now we also see that if a student is diagnosed with expressive language impairment, we can find that prior assessments may not be valid or reliable in the IQ of a student. Texts that meet that student's IQ level and are accommodated by any means to allow that student to thrive are vital. Many times you will see the parallel between special needs students thriving and general population school kids rising when implementations are put in a school district. They were given so much information and new inventions that we are constantly given an opportunity to improve students' lives. It is up to us to best prepare our students to reach their full potential. Another idea that is given for those with expressive language impairment is the use of special education teachers that have intervention classes also become part of the general classroom. The skills that they implement in small groups can often be used in conjunction with a head teacher in a regular classroom. To that same note, with the hopeful expansion of practice such as RTI. I guess a random thought that I had before was the implementation of sending books home with students based on their lexile level. In many cases, such as parents are unsure what to give their child to read or what content is available for their child, and often many times can't take the time out of their work, let alone afford to properly have their child thrive outside of the classroom. We've already talked about it briefly, but I would like to fully vouch my support on the RTI model. I believe that this plan and form of action, given and directed in many school districts throughout the country, will shape and better serve these students with developmental needs. This is a proactive instead of a reactive movement. Looking back and seeing the progress made toward these expressive language impairment, it is obvious to see that many strides have been made, both research-wise and a practical application within schools. However, there is so much more we can do with them. It is up to the advantages of technology, legislation, and attitude to improve these ideals. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, I'd be more than happy to answer them by email if you'd like to ask me one-on-one, or I will create a thread by the end of the presentation where we can work on it from there. I would love to hear anything that you have any input on the topic, but once again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.